All right. Well, I know I'm a few days off, but I want to go back and talk about the death of Kansas City police officer Robert Melton that was on July 19th. Interesting, we get a Kansas City police officer who gets shot and killed just a few days after we get the Baton Rouge shooter who was supposedly from Kansas City as well. And if you've been following my previous videos, I mentioned a lot about it seems like a lot of the stuff going on in the media always connects back to Philadelphia and also connecting back to the royal family. Philadelphia is where the Fresh Prince is from. We even had the death of the football player Will Smith this year that was connected. Anyway, this Gavin Long, in Gematria, his name, the big way, equals 101, just like Philadelphia. And Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, when you write it out in Gematria, it equals 118, just like Dallas, Texas, where Micah X. Johnson supposedly attacked the police officers. And then Gavin Long does it in Baton Rouge, that equals 118. The word death also equals 118, and I'll show you some more stuff in regards to death here when I move on, but it was 3 officers killed, that equals 118. They even originally said he was uh, all black. He was wearing all black and a mask. That equals 118. That was in the headline or whatever. I also want to point out, if you write out the word 56, it also equals 118. The election, the United States presidential election, is even on 11/8. So something to think about. 56, a super significant number in lots of events. Paris, France equals 56. ISIS equals 56. Black Lives Matter equals 56. Osama bin Laden, Adolf Hitler, Saddam Hussein, all equal 56 in Gematria. Also, royal family and president equal 56. Anyway, let's move on back to the death of Robert Melton then on July 19th. I mentioned this day a whole lot in a lot of previous videos for the fact that it's written as 19/7, and the word prince in Gematria equals 197. So this guy, notice how they write his name on the CNN article. They write CAPT, short for Captain Robert Melton. If you write that out in Gematria, it equals 197. And he just so happens to die on 19/7. The reason that Kansas City sticks out so much to me is because they're the Royals, the Kansas City Royals baseball team. I know they play in Missouri, but it's still just Kansas City in general. And last year during the World Series, I even talked about the Royal theme in regards to the World Series. I mean, New York Mets and Gematria, who lost the World Series to the Kansas City Royals. New York Mets equals 168, just like Queen Elizabeth II. They even play in Queens. New York in Gematria equals 111. Queen Elizabeth born on the 111th day of the year. It was also the 111th World Series that came to an end because Matt Harvey wouldn't come out of the game until he pitched 111 pitches, and the game came to an end, or the final game began on 11/1, November 1st even. But there was a lot of stuff connected to Pope Francis as well, and I know the Kansas City Royals you would think would be connected to the royal family, but they had a lot more connections to Pope Francis. A guy even dressed up as the Pope and caught a home run ball of Salvador Perez on 6/6 of 2015. And when I noticed the gematria of Kansas City Royals and Kansas City connected to Pope Francis, I had a good feeling the Royals were going to win the World Series just because Pope Francis made his first trip to the United States. It was a big deal, and it was also connected to a Philadelphia train wreck. And then we even had the movie Trainwreck that came out last year. And in this movie, they were all about the New York teams. It was about the New York Knicks, and also they loved the New York Mets in this movie. If you write out the word Trainwreck, it equals 122, just like Kansas City, just like Golden State, who won the NBA Finals, just like Pope Francis. Pope Francis the small way equals 59, just like Kansas City Royals. So just interesting, I guess, moral of the story is that Kansas City seems to be connected to the royal family and also Pope Francis. And then we get the death of this police officer in Kansas City Right after we get the guy in Baton Rouge who killed police officers who was from Kansas City. The word police officer even equals 122. The royals, though, also had a connection to Prince Charles, who, if Queen Elizabeth dies, he will become the new King of England. He will be King Charles III. Prince Charles of Wales is what he is right now, though. That equals 212, just like if you write out Kansas City Royals. So he's the prince that I've been talking about the most, anyway. Anyway, so this Kansas City police officer dies. His name syncs up to Prince. He dies on a date that syncs up to Prince. Even if you write out 197, it equals 107, just like King Charles. Kansas and Gematria equals 38 and 65, just like Prince. This was in Kansas City, Kansas. On Facebook, they showed his full name, Robert David Melton, which, very interesting, Robert David Melton also equals 197. I mean, what are the odds of that? So, also, I looked up the day of his death to Prince Charles's 68th birthday. Keep in mind, Prince Charles and Gematria also equals 68, but the day of this death to Prince Charles's 68th birthday, a span of 118 days, right? So we just had the shooting in Dallas, Texas, that equals 118. Then we got the Kansas City kid who shoots the Baton Rouge police officers, that equals 118. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 118. The election on 11/8, 118 days before the prince's birthday. The word death equals 118. Death also equals 38 the small way, which is interesting because Prince equals 38 the small way. The word death in English gematria also equals 228. If you go from the death of Prince the singer, who is super coded to a lot of things this year as well, and he also died on Queen Elizabeth's 90th birthday, but if you go from that day to the day of this Robert Melton death, a span of 2 months, 28 days. The story, too, was pretty interesting. If you read some of the details, there's lots of twos in this story. Captain Robert Melton, who had served in Afghanistan, was shot about 2 p.m. at 22nd Street. 2 people were in custody. He arrives at the hospital at 2:22 p.m. Then he dies 33 minutes later. Interesting, 33, the highest degree in Scottish Rite Freemasonry. If you read out the word 2, it equals 58, just like the word Freemasonry, just like Robert Melton without his middle name. That also equals 58. Police equals 33. 222 also sticks out to me, considering Amtrak equals 222. We even had the Amtrak derailment that was in Kansas this year. Also interesting, in regards to Kansas, and this was a shooting on the police officer, and we had the Gavin Long who was getting revenge on the police officers, and all the Black Lives Matter stuff going on, and the Blue Lives Matter. Kansas was really important during the American Civil War. They were the last state to join the Union, the 34th state. They joined 34 days before Abraham Lincoln became president on 3/4. Lincoln was born on the 43rd day of the year. He died 4 years, 3 days after the end of the Civil War. Civil War in Gematria equals 43. Lincoln equals 34. Anyway, this article, also notice how in this article they call it KCK officer, Kansas City, Kansas. Well, K in Gematria is 11, and then in Pythagorean Gematria, you break it down. So the small way, K is 2. 1 plus 1 is 2, so K equals 2, C equals 3, K equals 2, a lot like 232. Kansas in Jewish Gematria even equals 232. Also interesting, somebody had asked me to cover Flight 232, the airplane wreck in Sioux City, Iowa, which I'm going to make a video on that later, but this was also the anniversary of that airline crashing. It crashed on July 19th as well in 1989. And it's super connected to Queen Elizabeth as well. So in regards to the Kansas Amtrak derailment, that happened on Pi Day, March 14th, 314. It just so happened to be 4 months, 5 days before this Kansas City police officer dies. The 45th prime is even 197. If you use the end date, it would be 4 months and 6 days, or also 128 days, which is also super interesting. 719, a lot like July 19th, is the 128th prime. I've also mentioned how this number is connected to Pennsylvania and Philadelphia as well. Pennsylvania became a state on a date numerology of 128. William Penn, who founded Pennsylvania and also Philadelphia, his name in Gematria, 128. The Democratic National Convention that's being held in Philadelphia this year, Democratic National Convention equals 128. But the 4 months, 6 days with the end date, Robert Melton, he supposedly died at the age of 46. The last Kansas City police officer to die in action was Brad Lancaster. He died on May 9th this year. Brad Lancaster in Gematria equals 46. And also the big way, 118, just like Baton Rouge, just like Dallas, Texas. It also said that Melton was a cop for 17 years. Interesting, because if you write out the word 17, it equals 46, just like the age that he died at. The word sacrifice also equals 46. I even talked about Omaha, Nebraska equaling 46 because right after Obama gave his final State of the Union address, he went to Omaha and then he went to Baton Rouge then on the next 2 days or whatever. That was the first time he'd ever been in Baton Rouge. He even called it New Orleans at a speech at McKinley High School. McKinley, the assassinated president. Baton Rouge named after the Red Stick. McKinley's vice president was Teddy Roosevelt, who gave a famous speech just before he died in Falcon Heights, Minnesota, talking about the Big Stick. Tons of other stuff with that, but the word 46 also equals 46. In the big way, it equals 136. If you write out 136, it equals 107, just like King Charles. Zachary K. Hubbard has also been talking about how the mayors of the city have been connected to the shootings and whatnot. The mayor of Kansas City, his name is Mark Holland, who equals 46. His birthday even comes 2 months, 28 days after this shooting. So I also looked up to see if the Royals were playing that day. The Royals just so happened to be playing the Cleveland Indians. They ended up losing too. They lost 7-3, I believe. And I talked about it in here that if the Royals lose, they'll get their 46th loss. They were down 3-0, but they also the night before had came back and won, so you just never know. But I put this in here. Interesting, the Royals did get their 46th loss. The Indians even stayed on 38 losses. Remember, Prince equals 38. Funny, too, I made this post. It says it's 6:46, even though it's a different time zone or whatever when it posts on here, but 6:46, pretty interesting. But just wanted to document this death and just show that it's connected to the royal theme that I just keep mentioning over and over. Never seems to end. It seems like all of the articles in the media always somehow are connected back to the same things that I keep talking about, the same numbers, whatever, you know? But yeah, I'm going to end it here. Want to put out some other videos that I had meant to put out, and who knows how long I'll have internet service, so have a good one.